This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap.
Just because the sun goes down, that doesn't mean we can't go racing, baby. The F1 night race is upon us. This is the Outlap F1 podcast, and welcome on in. You have found us. You've got Andy along with Cody tonight, and this is our Season 7, episode number 34. It's our 2025 Singapore GP preview show, and we are excited to get back into the swing of things with F1. We've got Singapore up, and then we will actually be doing this live in a couple weeks from Texas and on site. So all sorts of good stuff going on. But Cody, it's been a little bit since I've seen you, but how you been?
Been great. Just very much looking forward to heading to Texas for the race and getting some time off. And as I've said before, just praying to God that it's not like 90 degrees on race day, because you and I have gone toe-to-toe with the sun several years, and it can be a bit brutal.
Yeah, when you have to bring triple-digit SPF sunblock so that you don't die, that says something. And it's going to be hilarious because it's only one half of our faces that get exposed to the sun, so we literally look like we've been in some sort of a bad tanning booth or something, and people want to go, you should get your money back with that job or something. But anyway, I'm hoping it's not. It's been really warm here, and I keep thinking, like, this is the type of weather, like, this is what I want. Like, if this could just go down to Austin in a couple weeks, mid kind of low 80s during the day, but still kind of warm at night or cooler at night, I'll take that. But we'll see what we get. So cross fingers. Me and 100,000 of our other closest F1 friends are probably all thinking the same thing as we descend upon Austin in a couple weeks' time. But we will talk about all of that in due course. But we are here to talk about the Singapore Grand Prix because that's the next item on the docket in our F1 season that has just taking a whole bunch of different twists and turns. You think things are done, and then no, they're not done, and you're running all sorts of different permutations, and that seems to be what the theme has been over the course of the last week and a half. We'll talk about some of that stuff when we get into it, but if you have found our show, as always, we are glad you are here. Welcome along. You can find our content here on YouTube. You can find it also on X, on Discord, on Instagram, sometimes a little bit on Reddit every now and again, but at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. If you enjoy what you're watching and you like what you're hearing, if you're on YouTube, you can do us a solid, click either a like or a subscribe button. That would be great. If you click the subscribe button, you get notified when our content comes back up. We try to get posts out at a decent time. Sometimes the internet doesn't exactly let me do that, but we try to do what we can. If you're on your favorite podcasting app and you enjoy the show, if you want to leave us a 5-star review, that will help our show come up a little bit better in F1-related search results. If you'd like content like this, you can email the show. As always, we'll be happy to hear your comments, whether it's a review, a preview, whatever. outlapf1@gmail.com would get your comments to us. Thank you so much to our continued supporters who continue to support the show. You guys all know these names: Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to add your name to this distinctive list of esteemed people that we talk about every episode, all you got to do is leave us a little bit of money. It doesn't even cost much. $1, $5. Go to our Anchor page if you want to do that. Do you have to do that? No, of course not. We're just glad you're listening. If you wanted to do that, what it would do is help put those funds would go back into the show and help us keep our technology as relevant as we can in this ever-changing podcast atmosphere here. All right. Well, had a bit of news happen since the last time F1 has taken the checkered flag in Baku. One of the big names that has done a whole lot of racing, even though there was no F1 racing going on, that was Max Verstappen. He just loves to get into a car and go driving. Cody, I'll let you tell about Max Verstappen's adventure and domination of sports car racing. So, Cody, have at it.
Yeah, if any of you follow Formula One drivers in between races, you've surely heard that Max Verstappen took his weekend off from racing to go racing, as Max Verstappen does, and made his debut in the NLS series. That's, I'm going to try my best German here, the Nürburgring Langstrecken series, a series that just races around the Nürburgring. Managed to win on debut with his teammate Chris Lowland, racing for Emil Frey Racing. And they did that in a Ferrari 296 GT3. Now, if you've been paying attention to, again, in between races, Max Verstappen managed to get his GT3 permit for the Nordschleife earlier this month and put it to good use right away because he managed to win this race, again, with his teammate. We got to give credit where credit's due to Chris Holm as well, but they managed to win by some margin. And we got a lot of, in addition to just the awesomeness that, Max Verstappen managed to do this on debut, we got a bit of interesting bits of trivia that came out of this. For one thing, Max Verstappen managed to win an accredited race in a Ferrari before Lewis Hamilton, which is the main one I've seen flying around. A little bit of a sting there. One of the other interesting ones that I've seen is because Max Verstappen won the Azerbaijan Grand Prix now I guess almost 2 weeks ago, he becomes the first Formula One driver to win consecutive races, but across different racing series since Jackie Ickx did it in 1970. So it's been a long time since a Formula One driver has achieved, success like this in another racing series, at least, while they're in Formula One. So fun trivia there. It was really cool to see Max Verstappen, we see him in the simulator all the time, succeeding in just about everything, but it's cool to see him actually do it out on the track in a real deal accredited racing series. And I got to say, that Ferrari car that he was driving, it looks really cool. Like it looks cooler than the Red Bull car that they race in Formula One.
I mean, the Ferrari sports cars always look amazing. I mean, even, when IMSA here, in the US, I always love looking at the Ferraris because, I mean, it's just a cool ass car. And I think they call it, what is it? Spirit of Racing or Racing Competizione or whatever it is in Italian. They always turn heads and they're just really, really cool to look at. And just a question I have, because I don't know all that much about this race. Is this more of an endurance race? Is it like a 6-hour, 4-hour type deal? If they're changing drivers, I'm assuming it's at least more than a couple hours.
It is something of an endurance series. It's not anything like, like the FIA endurance series. Because, if you were going that long, you did the 3 drivers that they do in those series. But I think they did switch between the 2 of them. I think Max Verstappen started the race and then switched to Chris Holm. And then I think Max Verstappen actually took the wheel again to finish the race out.
Okay.
Also, the paint scheme that was used on that Ferrari, if I remember correctly, it's actually the scheme and sponsorship of, I believe, Max Verstappen's iRacing team.
Oh, nice.
So that's why I was sporting the red and blue, which I thought was really cool too. But yeah, just all around really fun. I gotta wonder how much more he's gonna do this. And it just continues to amaze me that it's like he's so into auto racing that on his off weeks when he's not racing in Formula One, he just loves it so much. He's like, oh, I'm gonna go find somewhere else to race, or I'm gonna race in my simulator or run my simulator team, or in his heart, this is what he loves to do.
And you got to wonder, at some point, way down the line, is there a Le Mans run in his future? I mean, we've seen
100% believe it.
Fernando Alonso. I don't know that Max necessarily wants to do IndyCar, which would be hilarious, which would be great if he wanted to do the Indy 500. I mean, he would get mega numbers for that. And that race would be pretty cool. But I don't know that he wants to do ovals.
I'm not sure, things change, but he has said in the past, in interviews, that he does not have any interest in doing oval racing because of the danger involved, especially at a track like Indianapolis, where you're going really, really, really freaking fast. He has said in the past he's not interested in doing that. Now, at some point later in his career, he might change his mind. But I 100% believe that he will race Le Mans in some capacity when he's done with his Formula One career. The dream team would be him and Fernando Alonso doing it together. That would be just the coolest shit. But I don't know. There's enough of an age gap there that Alonso might be retired to some fancy Spanish beach or Mallorca beach or something like that by the time Max actually makes it to Le Mans. But one can dream.
I think it just goes to prove that talent wins out, and Max is clearly a hell of a wheel guy behind a race car. And you put him in any different type of environment and he can excel. And that's really cool. And congrats to him on the win on debut. And we'll see where this goes later on down the line. But yeah, that was very cool. Another guy who actually got to come back to the sport. And I didn't realize this was the first time he'd actually gotten in an F1 car since this happened, was Roman Grosjean actually did a few laps, I think in the rain, actually, at Mugello. I know Haas were there and Red Bull were there because there's this video of Roman coming down the pit lane and all the guys from both teams got out, basically kind of did the old Dale Earnhardt of shaking his hand as he came back in off the run. But it was really cool to see Roman Grosjean back at the helm of an F1 car. I think it's the closure that I think he's wanted for a very long time. I don't know, obviously he was on the track by himself. He wasn't in a crowd. It wasn't in race conditions or anything like that. But just I think for him, for a guy like Roman, who's, had kind of his career kind of cut short because you never knew how long it could have gone. I mean, he had some good spurts in IndyCar and that kind of fizzled out, but it was good to see the reuniting with his old team. And I think it was a cool video. I think you should go check it out. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend that you go check it out because it's a cool moment. And I thought he did pretty good for what I saw. Yeah,
definitely a really cool moment. If you have been watching Formula One for a while, I mean, this happened almost 5 years ago now, which is just crazy to me. But his Roman Grosjean's Formula One career ended with a bang when he had that fiery crash in Bahrain. And it just so happened that was near the end of the season of that crazy 2020 season. And he was going to be without a seat, it looked like, for the next year. So that just kind of ended his Formula One career. And he has found some success in IndyCar, which is great. Still looking for that top tier race win, unfortunately for him, but he has found some success there with podiums and the like. But he was, I guess, supposed to get some kind of Formula One test with Mercedes. That kind of kept getting talking
through. Yeah,
it was talked about through the years, and it just never worked out. But it is really cool that he did manage to get back in a Formula One car and do those laps. I guess in an interview too, he said he wasn't ruling out a return to F1, and I was thinking, I don't know if there's the seats for that right now, but
it's a little crowded. It's a little crowded, but, again, one never knows. I mean, he would provide a veteran presence. It's a little late. He can't throw his hat in the Cadillac ring anymore, but I mean, maybe he wants to be a reserve driver or something like that, but who knows? But I mean, like I said, it's a very cool video. I love the fact that both Red Bull, who were there to, I think, do a filming day with, I think it was Yuki Tsunoda and Haas that were also there to do some testing and some other stuff at the Mugello circuit. And I know it wasn't like the easiest of weather conditions because I believe he did them in wet tires. So, and I saw, a lot of spray and stuff. So that was, like I said, it's a good moment for him. It's a good way to kind of close the door. I remember that crash so well watching it live. And it was one of the few times.
Yeah.
I think I dropped whatever I had in my hands. I think I had a thing of, it wasn't coffee or hot chocolate or something. And I know I made a giant mess because I thought the worst. It was one of those where I'm like, oh my God.
Oh shit moment.
Yeah. It was literally like you just stopped what you were doing. And then all of a sudden you see this image of him getting out of the car. It was like, you almost can't reconcile the two images at the same time. So it was quite the moment. And like I said, I'm glad for the marshal who was there to get him out of the car and all the systems that we talk about in Formula One and all the safety stuff and, Dr. Watkins and all the effort that went in through the years went into keeping that guy alive because by all rights, if he's not in an F1 FIA car with a halo, he's not here. It's just that simple. So good for you, Roman. I was glad to see you get some closure, hopefully, with that. Kind of next story, going from one of the more happier stories to, unfortunately, one of the more sad stories of the course of the last couple of weeks. We did get word over social media that Lewis Hamilton's second dog, I mean, he had Coco and then this was Roscoe, I think, unfortunately, had some medical complications. He slipped into a bit of a coma. I know he had to do like an emergency vet run. And if you've never known this before, vet hospitals are just as equipped with emergency equipment as human hospitals. And it's quite a thing. I've known many vet techs in my life who could tell me a whole boatload of stories about trying to save our furry friends. So they got him revived, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. It looked like I think Lewis finally made the call a couple of days later. And I think even Max Verstappen showed up with his child and was there. I know Fred Vasseur made a visit over there. Condolences to Lewis Hamilton. I mean, Cody, you've got your furry friends with you on most of our broadcasts. They are part of the family, whether, they talk or not, so I get it. And I feel bad for Lewis that he's got to go through this.
Yeah, definitely. My wife and I have had many pets over the years, and many have since passed on, and it's definitely very painful. It's losing a member of your family. So definitely my condolences to Lewis Hamilton. Roscoe has been a fun member of his entourage for a long time. He definitely dotes on him in his social media, and it's sad to see him go. So yeah, hopefully he is able to I don't know the right way to say it, but
I mean,
my
I'm sure.
condolences nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, we wish him nothing but the best, and hopefully a good weekend, a solid weekend in this Ferrari this weekend. We'll hope to cure that a little bit, but we'll see what happens. And then, it's like anything. Eventually, maybe he'll probably end up with a new pet later down the line, and hopefully we'll enjoy the interaction with the next one of Lewis's dog family. So, all the best to Lewis and his family on that. All right. One of the things I saw this, you put this in here, and I want to take a little mini victory lap because I have been calling for this for years. That the FIA, maybe they found an old transcript of the show and finally pulled this up, and they're finally listening to me. So they have increased the pit lane speed limit, which I've been saying forever was the major problem with why we have all these one-stop races, because you make it prohibitive to come into the pits. So they're increasing it from 60 kph to 80 kph, with the pit lane width being increased by a full meter. So it's a bit of a change to the racetrack. I think the wall will come out a little bit more than it normally has in the past. So under the previous limit, drivers would lose about 25 seconds from a pit stop, making the Singapore circuit, more than most, one of the most penalizing circuits on the calendar for pit stops. And what you saw in a couple of the most recent iterations up until last year was the first third of the race, nobody was going at full bore. They were going at 75, 80% speed to try to keep the tires in the window long enough so they could get to their one pit stop window, so we could all throw on the same compound of tire. And remember what I've talked about many times before. How do you kill an F1 race from an entertainment perspective? Put everybody on the same compound of tire at the same time. This may start to get around that because it's intended to provide more opportunity for race strategy. Strategy in Singapore. I'm behind it. I love it. Cody, what's your thought?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Now, to be fair, I don't think this is something that they're doing at every track right now. And for the FIA to approve the speed limit increase, it did require that expanding of the pit lane by 1 meter, pretty much for safety concerns and for allowing more spaces for the cars to run side by side if need be in the pit lane. But like you said, the strategy in Singapore has been to make it a one-stop, making it a one-stop. And the FIA is hoping that by increasing the speed limit and reducing that penalty of taking the pit stop, that some teams will be willing to risk going for a two-stop. And then, like you said, switching up the strategy, diversifying the strategy amongst different teams, giving us a little bit more excitement, because this race has a bit of a history of being somewhat processional. We've seen several races. The one that comes to mind for me is in 2023, the one race that Red Bull didn't win. When Carlos Sainz won that race, he pretty much held up a parade of Lando Norris and George Russell, who were right on his ass for the last how many laps, and they couldn't do anything about it. And that's because, like you said, everyone's on the same strategy. All the tires are roughly the same age, same compound. You don't have that difference to make up enough of a delta to get the pass done. So they're hoping that this will improve that outlook.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, George Russell wrecking late in that race kind of killed the idea of you change tires and maybe you can overtake somebody, because it looked like they were about to. And Mercedes in that race were one of the few who actually went for that second stop and said, hey, let's roll the dice and let's see what we can do. Meanwhile, everybody else is out there on tires that, you wouldn't want to run any other time. When it's over, you don't want to look at those tires because they look pretty sad, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, let's hope that this incentivizes some more pit stops, incentivizes some strategy, a little undercut, a little overcut. Let's see what can happen from a strategic standpoint. We know the two McLaren guys are going to be going at it from a different or have different strategic options open to them in the middle of a race. Max Verstappen is going to have some different strategic options open to him in the middle of a race. So it will be interesting to see, because like I said, the last thing you want to see is everybody come in at the same time. And that's sometimes you get safety cars and you love them, and sometimes you can't stand a safety car because a safety car can sometimes kill whatever the momentum is of the race. But it's going to be interesting to see, does this play or does it have little to no effect and everybody still does the one stop anyway? And maybe my lovely theory of the pit lane speed limit being the problem is proven to be just another dumbass thing that came out of my mouth. I don't know. We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed for a much more entertaining weekend. All right. I think we've talked long enough on the news. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to stop. We'll re-rack. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about our Pirelli track facts. We'll get you all geared up for the Singapore circuit and the F1 night race, which is upon us. We'll get you all geared up for that. We'll talk about the weather, which is actually really going to be a thing. It usually isn't, but looks like it could play a factor this weekend. And then we'll give you what we think is going to happen this weekend. Lord knows I need to do better after my whitewash last time out. So we'll see what happens with that. So come on back. You won't want to miss it.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back on in. This is season 7. This will be episode number 34 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Singapore Grand Prix preview show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight. We just kind of caught you up on some of the news and some interesting changes that they made to the Singapore circuit to hopefully promote some different race strategies, but we'll see how all that plays out. But now it is time to preview our full weekend. So we're going to drop our green flag. We're going to get into our Singapore GP track facts brought to us by the good folks at Pirelli Motorsport. So Cody, tell us about the Marina Bay Street Circuit.
Formula One goes racing in Singapore this weekend at the Marina Bay Street Circuit, located in, you guessed it, the Marina Bay sector of Singapore. Number of laps for the Grand Prix is 62, and the length of the circuit is 4.940 kilometers. That's 3.069 miles, and it consists of 19 turns. The tire selection from Pirelli is going to be the same as last year. That's the C3 hard, C4 medium, and C5 soft compounds, and the track characteristics from Pirelli are also all rated the same as last year. That's a 4 out of 5 for traction, 3 out of 5 for asphalt grip, a 3 out of 5 for asphalt abrasion, 5 out of 5 for track evolution, a 2 out of 5 for tire stress, 5 out of 5 for braking, a 2 out of 5 for lateral load, and a 5 out of 5 for downforce. Both of the lap records we're going to talk about were set last year, and before that, the lap records were set in 2023, so definitely a lot of lap records set here with the current generation of cars. The current qualifying lap record in the current configuration of the circuit is going to go to Lando Norris, who did it last year with a 1 minute 29.525 seconds. Now that I'm thinking about it, we actually had a slight track configuration change, so maybe that's why we're showing these race lap records with the current configuration. But I digress. The race lap record on this configuration is going to go to Daniel Ricciardo, who did it at the very end of the Grand Prix last year. And he did that with a 1 minute 34.486 seconds. Most wins at the Marina Bay Street Circuit is going to go to Sebastian Vettel, who managed to win here 5 times. Lewis Hamilton has also been very successful here. He's won 4 Grand Prix in Singapore. And then Fernando Alonso has won 2. Most constructor wins here is a 3-way tie between Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari, all with 4 wins apiece. And then McLaren, as of last year, is up to 2. What's the circuit like, Andy?
All right, the Marina Bay Circuit is one of the most physically demanding on the calendar. It's bumpy street surface, coupled with humid conditions, giving the drivers plenty to think about. Even with a revised 2023 layout, reducing the number of corners from 23 to 19, they are working the wheel a lot. Around the high-speed lap, the physical stress causes them to lose as much as 3 kilograms. That's insane in body weight over the course of a race. As for the weather, and of course, it's going to be hot and muggy like it always is in Singapore, regardless of the day. But for Saturday night for qualifying, it's going to be cloudy, low of only 79 degrees. So that's not very, it's still pretty hot. Winds will be light and variable, so if it's sticky, it's not being aided by the wind. Chance of rain, however, a 24% chance of rain, so that's not nothing. For Sunday night, cloudy skies, early scattered thunderstorms developing later in the night, a low again of around 79 degrees. Winds are light and variable, a chance of rain of up to 50%, so that could be something significant. I have read some reports that they expect rain pretty much every day. It's probably going to rain during the day, but then dry up at night. So what does that mean? It's probably going to mean green racetrack for every session. So how does it rubber in? When does it rubber in? You're going to see probably a lot of track evolution, particularly in qualifying. This could be a track that catches people out in Q1 for sure. All right. Well, yeah, it's going to be a physically demanding track. If there is ever a Drive to Survive episode that I would recommend, it's the Singapore one from last year's season. I found it incredibly enlightening as to how physical of a frickin' weekend this really is for them. And that's why when I hear stuff like they're going to do a sprint weekend here next weekend, I'm like, how the hell do you do this? Like, who's going to be left? I really worry about it.
George Russell in that episode looked like he was ready to puke when he got out of the car. His eyes are all sunken. His skin's all tacky. And it's just like, man, you're really going through it during this race.
Yeah. I mean, it was to the point where he felt cold.
Mm-hmm.
He was so stressed out. His body was so stressed out that it literally turned on its edge. But let's hope everybody gets through it safely and they use all the cooling technology that they have available to them. All right, but we do have a race to run. There are points on offer. There's a potential Constructors' Championship to be won this weekend. Much easier for McLaren. Basically, they got to score 13 points. If they score 13 points, nobody else can catch them. As long as they can keep the cars out of the freaking wall this weekend, that should be okay. But that's always a possibility. We've seen even last year with a dominating Lando Norris, he damn near almost stuck it in the wall at least twice. So who knows? Here we go. So it's our Choose Your Champion predictions format. We will start, as we always are apt to do, with our pole sitter. Last year's pole sitter was Lando Norris in one of his better dominating weekends than I've ever seen that guy ever drive before. But it looks like it's a different year, different track, different cars. Cody, what you got going on with the pole sitter?
Like we talked about before the show here, I think this might be my last chance to really go fanboy. So just like last race, where it really worked out for me, and Max Verstappen got pole and got fastest lap and won the race, and it was glorious. I'm going to go for Max Verstappen to get pole again. I do acknowledge this is a much different track than Azerbaijan. It's looking like it will be much more favorable to the McLarens, but I am hoping that for the sake of making the championship that much more interesting, that Max will work some magic and put everyone on edge with the pole position.
All right, very good. Yeah, that'll put me a little bit on edge. I won't disagree. If Max happens to do it here, like we were talking earlier, I'm like, okay, here's your canary to see if the Red Bull upgrades are real. Is this new floor a real thing? I was not surprised that Max was able to trim out that car and go for it in Italy and do the high speed thing and was able to even win that race. That did not totally surprise me, even though I didn't predict it, and maybe I should have. Azerbaijan was a bit more shocking, not only that Max was there, but that everybody else fell off and the McLarens and the Ferraris just could not execute to save their lives. Both of them really were kind of put into that boat, particularly the McLarens. But I remember last year, and I remember watching Lando go around this track, and from the first practice, it just seemed like he was just at one with this racetrack, other than when he almost damn near put it in the wall. So assuming he's not going to do that, and I'm not saying he's not going to have a moment, but he does know how to get around this racetrack. He does need the points. He needs a comeback race after last time. He actually needs one too, but I'm giving this one to Lando because he's gone better around it historically. Who knows? Maybe this is me being a fanboy too, but I'm going to say Lando Norris for pole. Okay. What do we have as a lap time? Last year's lap time was the 1:29.525. Cody, what you got here?
I was kind of hemming and hawing on this one because of the fact that it looks like there's going to be rain during the day. I did go faster than last year's time, but not to the degree that I have at a lot of other tracks, because I think it's going to take some time for that circuit to rubber in. I don't think everyone's going to be going quite as fast as those cars can really manage. So like I said, I did go slightly faster than last year with a 1 minute 29.433 seconds.
All right, very good. I do think that you're going to see lots of track evolution throughout each of these sessions. But by the time we get to Q3, we should be fairly rubbered in, assuming we haven't had another deluge to come wash it all away. So I'm going to say no rain during the session, maybe rain before, maybe rain after, but not during. So I think we're going to be pretty much rubbered in. So I'm going to go a little bit faster. I'm going to say a 129.251 for my lap time. Here. All right, so turning to the race on Sunday, our 2024 podium was Lando Norris taking the win. But Max Verstappen, even though he got beat by quite a bit of margin, but was still there, he comes home in P2, and Oscar Piastri managed to came home, making it a McLaren double podium in P3 last year with some very nice overtakes, particularly against George Russell, I think particularly late in that race. But what do we have on offer this time around? Cody, I'll let you go first. What you got?
Got all the same drivers from last year's podium, but rearranged to A, be a fanboy, and B, kind of try to write the story for what I think is what I hope will happen to make this end of the season more interesting. So I've got Max Verstappen taking the win, taking as big a bite out of the championship lead as he can. I got Lando Norris taking second, and Oscar Piastri taking third. And the reason why I say I'm kind of trying to write the story here is, let's be real, I want Max to have a shot at it, even if it's not really realistic. And if he closes the gap on Piastri, and Norris closes the gap on Piastri, if you continue to close up the gap between the two McLaren drivers, they're not really going to be able to implement team orders, even if Max starts catching up, because they're going to be so close that they're going to be like, to hell with that, I want to win. And I think that'll just make everything that much more juicy. So there's my podium for you.
All right, very good. I was talking with Cody in the break that I was looking for a sound drop. Unfortunately, I have not found it. I will keep it in reserve. And we'll look for it. If Max happens to pull this one off and we do get more juicy, I'll have to break out the soundbite because there's something particular that I want to say to my team at that point. But we'll leave that here. But I do think this is where, like, if there's a racetrack that McLaren needed to go to after a really subpar performance last time out, it's here. They've historically, even when they weren't very good, have always gone well here. It's lots of medium speed corners where that McLaren car likes to eat up and just gets through it better than everybody else. We're going to see what Red Bull can do. This has been a track that's been kind of a more iffy for them in the past. That doesn't necessarily mean it's correlative into the future. I do think the Red Bull upgrades have made them a step for sure. We're going to find out just how big of a step. But that having been said, again, maybe I'm going fanboy here. I do think the championship's going to get closer, but I'm going to have Lando Norris taking the win. But I do have Max in contention. I think he's had enough consistency over the last few races to where I think you got to mark him. So I got him coming home in P2, got Oscar Piastri coming home in P3 in kind of a bit of a damage limitation race for him, because the biggest thing for him is he needs a clean weekend. Needs to keep it out of the wall. I know needs a clean weekend as well. Let's hope that that's what we get. All right. Moving on to our fastest lap in the driver. That fastest lap was the last fastest lap that was worth anything because they killed the point after this race. Daniel Ricciardo going out and supposedly doing Max a favor. There was so much. You want to talk about overblown stories? This was one of the most overblown stories of 2024. The Daniel Ricciardo point in Singapore, just things that were way too overblown last year. But anyway, he took that fastest lap point. He got a 1:34.486 of a lap time. Remember, on a set of soft tires. Cody, who do you have setting the fastest lap, and what's your lap time?
I definitely think the McLaren is going to be a very strong car here. Like you said, they've always gone very well in Singapore, and Lando Norris seems to be very good at this track. So I've got Lando Norris setting that fastest lap with a 1:34.557 seconds. So actually a little slower than last year. I'm not exactly sure why. I think I was probably thinking along the lines of it being a drying out track. And we got some maybe different strategy coming into play here. So we'll have to see.
All right, very good. I've got Oscar Piastri setting it because I do think that this could be one of those races where it's Max and Lando kind of on their own almost mini little planet. And then there's Piastri behind, and he's probably going to have the clean air and kind of have his own race. So I do think there will be opportunity for him to set some fast lap times, especially coming out of that pit stops. I've got Oscar Piastri setting the fastest lap. I've got a 1:34.289. So I'm going faster than you are, a couple a couple times here.
Mm-hmm.
My thought is just evolution of the cars going around this circuit. It's the same circuit. We have the same dimensions as last year, and we've seen these cars generally, when you keep everything else the same, they go faster. So we'll see what happens there. All right. So for bonus picks, we're going right down the grid. We're going P4, P5, P6. So let's see how we do with the top 6 in this race. I'll go first here. I do think Charles Leclerc has to be another guy that you mark, because he does tend to go around really well around here. I do think he could be the wild card in qualifying. He's one of those guys who can come up and do a mega Ferrari lap and, put, regardless of whether it's Norris or Verstappen, off pole. So we'll see how he goes this weekend for sure. But I've got him coming home in P4. I've got George Russell coming home in P5, and another one of those, hi, I'm George Russell, and I showed up and races. And Lewis Hamilton, yes, Ferrari are getting better. Lewis is getting more acclimated to that car, but I only got it good enough for P6 just because I think the competition above him is it's just on another level right.
Yep. I have all the same drivers as you, just again, slightly rearranged. I do have George Russell coming in 4th place for pretty much the same reasons that you described, where he just all through this year, he's been very consistently mopping up those lower podium spots, or, the 4th, 5th place when the car isn't as good, but he's been very consistently there. So I've got Russell in 4th, Charles Leclerc in 5th, squeezing out everything that Ferrari can do. And then Lewis Hamilton following him in 6th place.
All right. Very good there. All right. So for our prop bet for this race, this is always historically, this was one of those races that used to always butt right up against the time limit. If you got a safety car, which I think is still 100% or really, really close to it. If not, it's like in the 90s or something. Like, there may have only been like one race that they ever got through clean here. But once you got that safety car, it was always, usually we create more than one safety car, and we were always butting up against the 2-hour time limit. So our prop bet this weekend is going to be, will the race end via race distance or allotted time? So Cody, I'll let you go first. What you got for your prop bet?
I think that we're going to see this race end from allotted time. We're looking at probably a green track from the rain during the day. We've got a lot of or at least a couple drivers in Oscar and Lando, whose championship is on the line. People are going to be pushing it really hard. We've got a lot of midfield cars that are vying for position in the Constructors' Championship. Everyone's going to be racing hard, going to be slick. I think there's going to be probably multiple safety cars, if not red flags. And I think that'll drag us all the way to that time limit.
All right. Well, in some other years, I would say that's a pretty good reasoning there. If you have all that stuff, you'll definitely get there. I just remember I was, I think, shocked a couple of years ago when they did these last round of modifications, how much lap time it took off. It took off like 10 seconds or something a lap. And the next thing you know, the race time was like an hour 40, which meant that they had like 25 minutes left that they could have run to get to the time. But if it is wet and there are safety cars, your prediction could be just as valid as mine. However, I'm going to go with the safe option and say it's going to be dry enough. Even with a safety car, I still think we get the full race distance in. But if we see that clock, you can text me right when you see it. The lap counter note of the clock, you can tell me that you got me on that one. All right. So when and where can you watch your F1 this weekend? ESPN, of course, Family Networks in the United States is your home for Formula One. We're this far in. We still don't have a formal announcement on how we're supposed to watch this stuff next year. That just makes me nervous. Maybe we get an announcement at COTA. COTA is usually one of those places where, like, when people want to announce stuff, because there's so much technology and everything together down there, we usually get some announcements. So we'll probably be playing reporter a little bit while we're trying to take in all the track action as well. But for this weekend, you also got to be up a little bit earlier in the morning. It's not quite as bad as Baku, but it's not far off. FP1, bright and early, 5:30 a.m. Eastern, 4:30 a.m. Central. That's on ESPN2. FP2 will be 9 a.m. Eastern. That's 8 a.m. Central. Under the Lights, that'll be on ESPN2. FP3 kicks off again, 5:30 a.m. Eastern as the sun is setting in Singapore. That's on ESPN2. Qualifying will take place 9 a.m. Eastern, so it's kind of more traditional European time there. And the race will start an hour earlier than normal European time, 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central for us, and that'll be on Big ESPN. All right. Well, let's see what this round of the F1 Championship brings, man. I'm all here for it. We're going to find out if the Red Bull is going to be the thorn in my backside for the rest of this season, or do we have kind of normal service resumed? I don't know, but if nothing else, McLaren better damn well solve this Constructors' Championship this weekend. They pretty much all they got to do is keep it out of the wall, and they should do it. So let's get that done. Let's get that out of the way, and let's pop some champagne or whatever they drink in Singapore and go on from there. But anyway, we'll see what happens this weekend. We'll be back to recap it all after the race on Sunday. Cody, any final thoughts before we hop on out?
Just that I'm happy that this is a night race in Asia, so that I'm not watching it at like 1 o'clock in the morning. So at least I can be happy for that. It's on at like normal European times, I suppose.
Yeah, I tried to watch MotoGP, and oh, by the way, congratulations to Marc Marquez, who's shocking to no one, is now mathematically clinched the world championship. And I couldn't do it. I woke up and I saw the end and I went, God dang it. Like, all I had to do was stay up for 45 minutes and I couldn't do it. So I'm glad this one's early in the morning. It's easier for me. All right. Well, like I said, we'll be back on Sunday to recap it all. Until then, take care of yourselves out there. We'll see you on the next one. And as always, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at outlapf1 podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.